What's up, and welcome back to another episode of the Relationship Schools podcast. I'm your host, Jason, here with my lovely wife, Ellen.
Hello.
Hi. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
We're talking about spiritual development in the context of relationships a little bit today.
Mm-hmm.
And how we fall into this trap, some of us, of thinking we're better than someone else.
Yes, or that
Right.
somehow our spirituality or spiritual development can have us transcend our human experience.
Yeah. And Ellen and I are both, I think, deeply spiritual humans.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also limited, normal people
Yes.
in our nervous system and our, just the way we operate sometimes. We're just messy people sometimes, like everybody, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we just wanted to have a dialogue about this because sometimes we work with people or get questions where people get kind of stuck here around thinking they're better than someone or thinking, hey, I'm transcended that issue. I don't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so let's get into that.
Yeah. You want to get into that?
Yeah, you have lots to say
Yeah,
here.
I know. So I think it might be partly because we live and work in Boulder, that there is a lot of personal growth oriented people here. There's a lot of spirituality and spiritual development here. And it's a really amazing place in a lot of ways. And but what we're trying to hone in on is as we watch couples try to navigate this sort of intersection between what happens as human beings in relationship. And human beings, I mean like a mammal with a nervous system that responds to threats, that has irrational reactions to things, emotional reactions to things. A human mammal that has a history of potential challenges with dependent relationships and primary relationships, things like that, and how that intersects with some of our spiritual development, our spiritual teachings, because those can really resonate and feel very freeing and expand our view on life and our humanity.
Yeah.
But somehow it seems like they can, there can be a challenge there
Completely.
to integrate all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of you know Bruce Tift, who I've had on the podcast here. He has a nice way of summing this up, which is there's a fruitional view and a developmental view. But I would tweak it to say a fruitional view and practice and a developmental kind of way of living. And in other words, we get a spiritual teaching from Buddhism or wherever that says there's no problem in this moment. I'm feeling uncomfortable with that. There's no problem here. And I like that. I'm with that.
Right. Like working with our mind
Yeah.
around our human experience.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And trying to see that it's actually happening maybe for a reason and there's no problem here and I can just relax into this moment and be with it.
Yeah.
That's kind of more of a fruitional view. And then there's the developmental view, which is, you're reacting and some of your reactions are coming from your history and what you've been through and what your nervous system remembers in your body. And the procedural memory in there of you've had some more negative experiences when someone looked at you a certain way. There's developmental work to do in relationship with other people that I can't transcend, and I can't just be like, oh yeah, it's all fine. Like, I'm okay.
Right.
There's this path that we have to walk.
Right. And so like, I think the slippery slope there is the fruitional view can feel so liberating and spacious and like, oh my God, things are okay. And I can be with my discomfort. I can like sit here alone and work with this, be with this, and it evolves into something else. And like, there's a whole inner process to learn about ourselves there. And a lot we can tap into that's, the unseen world or just this huge energetic capacity we have. Like there's a lot of amazing spiritual experiences to be had.
I believe it.
And then that can be alongside this the fact that we have a nervous system that remembers, we have implicit, like Jayson said, procedural memory, we have memory just in our bodies about how, what the risks and vulnerability are when it comes to being close with someone or depending on them or not having people close enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also just have a nervous system that reacts to facial expressions or voice tone or, things that could be dangerous to us that we've learned that our bodies have learned over thousands of years that could be threatening and what's safe and where we relax. There's a lot of just body information that we're working with as human beings. So we have this like body level experience that's kind of very primal. And then we also have this very kind of uplifted overview that's very spiritual and sort of higher, like a higher view. And then how do those two come together? Because I think in my view, and I think this is true for you too, Jayson, is that we want both. We have to have an integration of both our developmental human experience and our spiritual development to really have, I think, the most full experience of ourselves.
Yeah. So we want these two to be integrated.
Yeah.
And that's why Ellen and I see relationship as a path to becoming who we are, because it forces us to take our spiritual paradigm and smash it into our developmental work.
Yeah.
And it's complicated.
It's complicated.
It's sticky and it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And yet that's where, to me, the freedom is using my triggers with Ellen to be myself.
Mm-hmm.
Versus where it gets slippery here with bypassing is I can take my spiritual view and I can be like, well, I'm feeling I'm uncomfortable here and there's no problem and I'm not going to do anything to help you out. And that's your reaction is your problem. My reaction is my problem. And I'm just going to
take it to the cushion.
Take it to the cushion and put that in my spiritual paradigm and we'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that at times or in the short term might relieve some of the challenges between us.
Yeah.
But what we've seen over time in our own relationship and in a lot of couples is that that's not a sustainable way of really developing a relationship. That you can't just keep going to your own corners and working with your experience and bringing yourself back into balance and then coming back, that like there's a ceiling to where you can go as a couple. Mm-hmm. If that's your main strategy for dealing with tension, conflict, differences, that if you aren't actually getting in there and collaborating and creating a new narrative and a new understanding of yourselves and each other, like that's really where the development comes in, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's more complex.
It is more complex.
I feel like this was a stage of Ellen and I's journey where we went through a stage where we both went to our corners. And it had merit. There was ways in which that worked. If I was triggered by you, I could kind of not bother you with that, and I could just take it to the cushion and breathe through it and cry or hit pillows or whatever.
Or I could go on a hike for a few hours and sort of move and feel my feelings and then come back and be like, yeah, I'm better now.
Yeah, are we cool? Okay, good, we're done. And what we've learned over time with ourselves and other people is the nervous system doesn't quite... you can't get around the nervous system part of this. Mm-hmm. And while you might have gotten more calm in your nervous system on your hike, and I might have gotten more okay in my skin on my meditation cushion, I still have to come back toward you again. And here we are with the same problem that we still haven't dealt with.
Right.
Which is our developmental
That's the developmental
history.
Work
Is like what actually got triggered here? What's the problem? Where do I need to grow and develop? In relationship to you, standing 2 feet away from you, not going to my corner, but actually staying here. Mm-hmm. What's the move here? Mm-hmm. And how do I mature into myself deeper?
Yeah. Yeah. And that is such an edgy place, to stay in that discomfort and stay in relationship. It's so it's kind of raw, it's very vulnerable, it's a little maybe messy, and to us, I think that is really important work to do to keep integrating these spiritual ideas with our developmental maturity. Because if we're just standing in the spiritual frame and our psychological development isn't growing, we are really prone to spiritual bypassing. That's where it's really easy to bypass and then stay really stuck on one level and have to, we can only go so far with another person.
Hey y'all, if you want to learn how to get your needs met, learn about attachment dynamics, learn how to become a relationship coach, or learn how to work through conflict successfully, come sign up for one of our latest trainings, relationshipschool.com/training. All right, and we rotate these trainings. So I'm not sure what it is right now. Just go to that page. This way you can get me live, ask me a question, and hopefully learn a ton that's going to help you immediately in your relationship life. Here's another way to think about it, just to try to simplify this even more, is think of a parent and child. The child, let's say a 5-year-old boy, okay, I'm 5 years old, and my mom is trying to help me grow up, right? And at 5, there's certain developmental things that I move through. I need to, I'm into how much can I accomplish here, and I
need to tie my shoes by myself.
I'm learning some independence here, and I can throw my tantrum but come back and be okay again. There's lots for me to do. And if the parent just sent me to my room and I was just supposed to deal with myself, right? No one is teaching me how to mature here and how to grow up. I'm only taught just go be with yourself, right? And actually that's not self-regulation, as we know. When you send a kid to his room, they're usually distracting because no one's taught them how to be with their experience.
Right.
So it's more like dissociation or reading or doing something else, getting on my screen, besides being with myself. So again, if that happens over and over and over again, that child isn't developing, right? And the parent's not really teaching them how to develop.
Right.
And they're getting stuck. Their development's getting arrested in the things, the developmental tasks that they need to accomplish. So if we just take that kind of example and put it on an adult relationship, there's developmental gaps that all of us probably had growing up that we have this amazing opportunity to complete or move through together as adults.
Yeah, because really dealing with another person in an intimate relationship is like one of the hardest things to do. Like it's actually really hard for our brain to be with ourselves and another person who's a completely different entity than us. Like it takes a lot of capacity to do all the things that are needed to listen to another person, be interested and curious about another person, and hold that same level of attention and interest in myself. It's way more complex, and we need practice. And like Jayson was saying, like if we didn't get a lot of practice with that or have that experience of someone being with themselves and with us at the same time when we were young, we really don't know how to do that. And we feel like, okay, it's either going to be your way or my way, and it's going to be unfair. Yeah. And that speaks to just a developmental gap. So what we're often working with people on is some of that developmental work of how do we become a more complex, mature human being, because we have the capacity to do so. Yeah. And integrate that with where our spirituality is leading us and showing us what's possible. But we have to integrate both to have the full spiritual experience. And I think our developmental maturity is enhanced by a spiritual view, like by having a view on life where these challenges in relationship are meaningful. They're there for our growth. Yeah. Like just even that is can really help people stay with the challenges that we're being faced with to grow and develop.
Yeah. So it wasn't until, for me, age 29, when I learned to take responsibility for my experience. You could say almost 3 decades I had a developmental delay or gap around ownership and taking responsibility and learning how to be with my experience. I didn't know how to do that. So I had a major developmental deficit there, relationally, right? And it showed up, of course, in my relationships with me blaming all the women I dated.
There was always something wrong with them.
Always something wrong with them. And I felt superior, and there was always something like they were doing wrong or not doing enough of, or they were too much, too emotional, too needy, whatever it was. I just had a big story going on. Little did I know that all of that was disowned in me. My emotional sensitivity was disowned. My ability to take personal responsibility was disowned, right? And I was stuck, super stuck. So it wasn't until I started working on myself that I could start developing there. And then once I got married to you, it like took it to the next level, because it was like, oh shit, I really got to own my stuff here if I want this to go well.
Yeah, totally.
And actually being with my emotions actually is better for the relationship than being shut down all the time. So there was all this magic that started to happen with Ellen because I started to mature developmentally. And I was meditating, I was busting my ass on the cushion, I was doing all kinds of stuff, thinking.
A lot of retreats, and solo time.
Yeah, time alone, being with my experience, getting good at that. But none of it was really moving this nervous system piece with you forward until we started really working that angle. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess another quick dynamic we can talk about before we wrap up is just this superiority thing. Where we see couples, one partner is like into personal growth. The other person maybe is, but isn't as far along or something.
Yeah, hasn't done like as much studying or something.
And so the more spiritual person, at least the self-identified more spiritual person,
right?
Like I'm more spiritual than you or developed than you, takes a kind of an arrogant stance and starts saying things like, I don't have that issue anymore.
Right.
I'm done with that, or I transcended that, or that's your issue, not mine. I'm over it. And
keeps pointing out like, well, and you're doing this and you're doing that, is really good. The spiritual person is like really good at pointing out all the ways the less spiritual person, less spiritual, is kind of not getting it.
Yeah. And they turn into the therapist, the coach, the sort of mentor. I kind of have my shit together. You kind of don't. And I'm going to kind of tell you all the ways in which you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
And I'm a little better and a little farther along. And some couples actually get stuck here. The underdeveloped person, at least in their dynamic, or how they're identifying it, can buy into it. Be like, oh yeah, my bad. Oh gosh, I need to try harder. I need to be more spiritual. I need to, gosh, if only I applied myself more, then one day I'll catch up to you. Or they either do that or they retreat and feel judged and criticized and shut down.
Yeah. Yeah. They either buy into it or they become defensive and self-protective and feel missed and
completely
and feel like something's off. And that's actually true. Something is off.
Something's completely off.
Yes.
Yeah. So our partner, the person we partner with, we have a real opportunity to reclaim and integrate what we have disowned or what was a developmental gap and throughout our childhood and adolescence.
Yeah, and everyone has that work to do. I've yet to meet a person that
no one's above
that isn't, doesn't have something to learn and develop in themselves.
Yeah, my refrain is often with like spiritual teachers. It's like, get into a relationship with me for 5 years and let's see how developed you are. Really, when we really get in there and partner with someone, we see the shadow comes out and emerges and spills out sideways and things get messy. Now that's as it should be so that we can heal, love that part of ourselves, integrate it, and be more empowered in our lives.
And it involves really, I think, working together, like collaborating to help each other there and to be as clear a reflection as you can and as humble as you can. It's a lot of humility to be in partnership, and together you can develop yourselves in a whole new way, which is really different than what we can do by ourselves. We can, of course, develop ourselves alone, but the partnership gets at a whole other part of ourselves that we only have access to in a relationship where we depend on each other.
Yeah, totally. So if someone claims they're more relationally developed, for example, than you are, I'd be suspicious. Yeah, and I would just challenge that person, and like attracts like. So it's often that we're with just the right person at just our level, that to do our work together, and that we trigger each other, activate each other in a way that helps our development. Especially if we know how to work with that, and we're a team, and we you know, behave in a way that's non-threatening and respectful and all that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we hope all y'all and your spiritual views, we really want to encourage that and integrating it with your development, your developmental work. And our favorite place to do that is relationally here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Action step. With a friend or your partner, if you have one, have a dialogue about this: spiritual development and relational development. You know, Ellen and I are saying to us, it's the same thing. Relationship as a spiritual path. Relationship as a path to becoming who we are. It's amazing. And I'm curious how it is for you. And do you have a spiritual view? If not, try it on that your relationships are designed to get you to grow. That could be your new spiritual view. Grow and become yourself. All right. I want you to really consider that as a spiritual framework, no matter where you are on the spiritual spectrum. Okay. I think it's endlessly fascinating to grow through relationship, not only with friends and family, but an intimate partner is probably the biggest crucible where you're going to grow the most. And you're going to get shown exactly where you are in your development. So have a conversation and see if that's true for you, that, gosh, I think I'm pretty spiritual, but man, am I relationally kind of young, right? Okay, awesome. Thanks for listening, folks. Thanks for subscribing. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, YouTube, all the channels. And be well. Go deep. Hey, every month I'm going to be doing a challenge. You've probably heard about it if you've been listening. You've got to be on my email list, however, to get in on the action. And you could win, a relationship course. You could win potentially coaching with me, no charge. You could win coaching with one of our coaches. There's lots of cool stuff that you can win if you play. How do you do that? All you have to do is be on my email list and look for the email that says personal update. In that email, I share a lot of personal wins and losses, highs and lows, podcasts I'm listening to, books I'm reading, favorite song, anything I'm watching, and what my challenges are, what my opportunities are, and of course, the challenge. So just go to relationshipschool.com/challenge. And you are going to be asked to just leave your email address. Okay, and then you're on my email list. Boom, done. And just make sure it doesn't go to spam. All right? relationshipschool.com/challenge. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Share one of these videos with a friend. We want to help the planet get their act together around relationships. And you are one of them, so thank you.